little girl had disappeared before the last funeral carriage left. At first, no one noticed. Rain struck the tall windows of Belgrave House, while black-clothed relatives crowded the drawing room, speaking in careful voices about inheritance, guardianship, property, and what would now become of 8-year-old Cecily Harcourt. Her mother had been buried less than 2 hours earlier. Yet already, men were discussing Cecily as though she were another item from the estate that needed to be placed in the correct hands. Standing beside the cold fireplace, Adrian Harcourt, Duke of Ravenspire, listened without speaking. He had arrived from London too late to hear his sister's final words. That fact had been sitting inside his chest like a stone since dawn. His elder sister, Beatrice, had written to him 3 times during the previous month. "Come soon. Cecily misses you. I would like to see you." Adrian had answered every letter. He had sent money. He had sent physicians. He had sent flowers. He had sent everything except himself. And now Beatrice was dead. "Your Grace." Adrian looked toward his solicitor, Mr. Pritchard. "There is another matter. Today, I am afraid it cannot wait." Across the room stood Lord Edwin Mallory, Beatrice's father-in-law and Cecily's maternal grandfather. He was a broad, silver-haired man who had remained dry-eyed throughout the burial. He had also spent most of the afternoon watching Adrian. Not grieving with him, measuring him. Pritchard lowered his voice. "Lord Mallory intends to petition Chancery for permanent guardianship of Miss Cecily." Adrian's expression hardened. "She is my sister's daughter, and you are her appointed guardian under Lady Beatrice's will. Then there is nothing to discuss. There will be." Adrian turned. Lord Mallory was already approaching. "I would prefer not to speak of this beneath my daughter's roof," the older man said. "My sister's roof." Mallory's eyes sharpened. "Precisely the sort of distinction that concerns me." Adrian stepped toward him. "Say what you came to say." Mallory did. "You have spent 12 years avoiding every responsibility that did not arrive with a seal from Parliament." The room became quiet. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You know nothing about my responsibilities. I know you visited your sister twice last year. She lived 4 counties away. I am 71. I visited her 11 times. Adrian had no answer. Mallory continued. "I know your estate is managed by stewards because you prefer London. I know you have never raised a child. I know your own niece barely knows you. She knows me. Does she?" That landed harder than Adrian expected. Mallory looked around. "Where is she?" Adrian glanced toward the doorway. A maid standing nearby looked suddenly uncomfortable. "Miss Cecily was upstairs, Your Grace." "When?" The maid swallowed. "Perhaps half an hour ago." Adrian's irritation disappeared. Find her. The house moved at once. Servants searched bedrooms, galleries, the conservatory and gardens. Adrian checked the nursery himself. Empty. Her little black funeral shoes were missing. So was the rabbit made of faded brown cloth that she carried everywhere. Rain continued beating against the windows. For the first time that day, fear entered Adrian. "Cecily!" No answer. He went down another corridor. "Cecily." Still nothing. Then he heard a woman's voice, not calling, reading. Adrian stopped outside his sister's music room. The door was slightly open. He pushed it wider. The room was dim. The piano stood beneath sheets of gray afternoon light. At first, he saw no one. Then the voice came again. And the fox discovered that the smallest door was sometimes the safest. Adrian looked down. Beneath the grand piano sat Cecily. Her black dress was crumpled. Her knees were pulled against her chest. Beside her sat a young woman Adrian vaguely remembered seeing at the funeral. Elena Vale, Beatrice's companion, Cecily's former governess. His sister had mentioned her often in letters Adrian had read too quickly. Cecily's fist was wrapped tightly around Elena's sleeve. Adrian crouched. "There you are." Cecily stared at him. Her face showed nothing. "Everyone is looking for you." "Nothing." "Come out." Her fingers tightened around Elena's sleeve. Adrian extended his hand. Cecily. The child moved backward. He frowned. I am your uncle. Elena closed the book. She knows. Then tell her to come. I won't. His eyes shifted to Elena. I beg your pardon? She doesn't want to move. There are 30 people searching this house. Then perhaps 30 people should stop searching. Adrian stared. No one had spoken to him like that in years. This is hardly the time for stubbornness. I agree. Elena met his gaze. So stop being stubborn. His voice lowered. You are speaking to the Duke of Ravenspire. And she buried her mother this morning. The words cut through the room. Elena looked toward Cecily. She doesn't care what title you have. Adrian said nothing. She doesn't know you well enough yet. I am her uncle. Grief doesn't care about legal rights. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Elena reopened the book. Adrian remained crouched beside the piano. What do you suggest? It was the first question he had asked anyone that day, without already believing he knew the answer. Elena considered him. Sit down. Where? Here. On the floor? Yes. He looked at the dust beneath the piano. Elena waited. Adrian removed his coat. Then, with considerably less dignity than he would ever admit, the Duke of Ravenspire sat on the carpet beside his niece. Nobody spoke. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. At 13 minutes, Cecily moved. Not toward Adrian, but she stopped hiding behind Elena. At 18 minutes, she placed her cloth rabbit between herself and her uncle. Adrian looked at it, then at Elena. What does that mean? Elena's expression softened slightly. It means she has decided you may remain. It should not have mattered, but it did. More than Adrian wanted to understand. That evening, Lord Mallory filed his petition. And the clock began. 100 days remaining. 3 days later, Adrian sat in Pritchard's London office, listening to the most humiliating description of himself he had ever heard. Unmarried. Pritchard marked something on the document. Frequently absent from the estate. Another mark. No experience raising children. Another. Household managed almost entirely by staff. Adrian leaned back. Are you attempting to assist me or Mallory? I am explaining what Chancery will see. What of the will? The will matters. It is not absolute. Pritchard removed his spectacles. Lord Mallory does not need to prove you are cruel. He only needs to convince the court there is a more stable home available. He lives alone. He lives with his widowed sister, 2 cousins, and enough female relations to populate a small village. Adrian glared. Pritchard continued. There is also Miss Vale. That changed something. What about her? She has been Cecily's governess since the child was 4. Before that, she was Lady Beatrice's companion. Cecily trusts her more than anyone. I know. You know after 3 days. Adrian ignored the criticism. What does this have to do with Mallory? He has offered Miss Vale a permanent position. Adrian sat forward. What? If he gains guardianship, she may continue caring for Cecily in his household. So he is purchasing her. No, he is being clever. Adrian stood. I will speak to Miss Vale. He did, and discovered that Elena Vale disliked Lord Mallory's plan, almost as much as she disliked Adrian's assumption that she would automatically remain with him. They met at Belgrave House that afternoon. Cecily was upstairs. Elena stood near the window, dressed in a dark blue gown instead of morning black. Adrian came directly to the point. Mallory has offered you employment. Yes. You will refuse. Elena slowly lowered the book in her hands. That sounded very much like an order. It is necessary. For whom? For Cecily. Then you should have said so. Adrian restrained himself. Will you refuse? I already have. He paused. Why? Because I am not interested in being passed between 2 rich men like a piece of furniture. His mouth tightened. That was not my intention. It was exactly Lord Mallory's intention. And mine? I haven't decided. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. You are unusually difficult. And you are unusually accustomed to obedience. That may become inconvenient. For you. That time, he did smile. It surprised both of them. The moment disappeared quickly. Elena walked to a desk where several papers waited. I was leaving Belgrave before Lady Beatrice became ill. Adrian looked at them. Leaving? I have leased a building in Alderwich. For what? A school. He looked at her. A girls' academy? A small one. For daughters of tradesmen, widows, clerks, and anyone else who cannot afford fashionable schools, but still wants their daughters educated beyond embroidery. When? I was meant to leave next month. And now? Her gaze shifted toward the ceiling, toward Cecily's room. I don't know. That uncertainty stayed between them. 5 days later, Pritchard came to Ravenspire Hall with a solution. Adrian hated it immediately. Elena hated it 3 seconds later. They sat opposite each other in the library while rain streaked the tall windows. A married household, Pritchard explained, would substantially weaken Mallory's argument. Elena stared at him. You cannot possibly mean... Pritchard looked at Adrian, then at her. Silence. Adrian stood. No. Elena also stood. Excellent. No offense intended. None taken. Pritchard rubbed his forehead. Would the two of you kindly stop agreeing long enough to consider the child? That silenced them. He laid out the situation. The review would occur in precisely 100 days. Mallory's strongest argument was instability. Elena could not remain indefinitely in an unmarried gentleman's household without creating gossip that Mallory's solicitor would eagerly use. If she left, Cecily lost the one person she currently trusted. If she moved to Mallory's house, his guardianship case strengthened dramatically. There was one arrangement that removed all 3 problems: marriage. After Pritchard left, Adrian and Elena remained in the library. Neither looked at the other. Finally, Adrian said, "This is absurd." Very. It may also work. Elena turned. He hated the look she gave him. Not offended. Not shocked. Worse. Interested. You are considering it. I am considering Cecily. So am I. He walked toward the fireplace. 100 days. What? The hearing occurs in 100 days. Elena understood immediately. The marriage would not need to be forever. She stared at him. He continued. Separate rooms, separate finances, no expectations beyond maintaining a respectable household and caring for Cecily, as you already do. And afterward, you may do whatever you intended before. My school? Yes. You would not interfere? No. Even if Cecily wanted me to remain. Adrian hesitated. That mattered. Elena noticed. He finally answered. I would not use her to force you. Something in Elena's expression changed. Only slightly. Then she walked to the window. 100 days. 100. She looked back. And when the 100th day arrives, if Cecily is safe, I leave for Alderwich. Adrian answered too quickly. Agreed. A tiny silence followed. He did not understand why her eyes changed. Elena herself barely understood it. She did not love him. She hardly knew him. Still, there was something strangely cold about hearing a man agree so easily that he would have no reason to want you after a particular date. She nodded. Then we have an arrangement. Day 100. They married on a gray Tuesday morning. There were 11 guests. No orchestra. No ballroom. No wedding breakfast crowded with aristocrats. Cecily stood between them throughout most of the ceremony. When Adrian took Elena's hand, Cecily held the other one. When the ring slipped onto Elena's finger, Adrian looked at her. Not lovingly. Not yet. But with an expression that said they had both stepped onto a bridge neither had entirely inspected. 100 days, he whispered. Elena replied. 100. 3 hours later, their first disaster arrived. Cecily refused to enter Ravenspire Hall. The carriage stopped beneath the stone entrance. Servants lined the steps. Adrian descended. Elena followed. Cecily did not move. "Come," Adrian said. The child's body stiffened. He softened his voice. "This is your home now." Cecily stared at the enormous doors. Nothing. Adrian held out his hand. She backed away. He looked at Elena. Elena did not tell the girl to obey. Instead, she sat on the stone step. The servants stared. Adrian frowned. "What are you doing?" "Waiting." "For what?" "For her." "Here?" "Yes." Rain clouds gathered overhead. Adrian looked toward the open doors, then at Cecily, then at his new wife sitting on the front steps of one of England's grandest houses. Finally, with visible reluctance, he sat beside her. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At 20, Cecily left the carriage. She walked toward them. She did not enter the house. Instead, she sat between Adrian and Elena. 3 people. 1 silent child. 2 strangers wearing wedding rings. An enormous mansion behind them. No one watching would have mistaken them for a real family. But perhaps that was why the moment mattered. Because none of them knew yet that they were becoming one. Day 87. Cecily still had not spoken. But she had invented another language. Ribbons. White meant yes. Blue meant no. Red meant leave me alone. Green meant stay. Elena understood them instantly. Adrian thought the entire system ridiculous. Until one morning Elena found him searching every pocket of his coat. "What have you lost?" "Nothing." "You have checked that pocket 4 times. He frowned. Then finally muttered, "The green ribbon." Elena stared. Adrian continued searching. "Cecily gave it to me yesterday." "I know. She may ask for it. She has 6 others." "That is irrelevant." Elena hid a smile. Later that morning, Adrian made another mistake. He decided the servants were hovering too much around Cecily at breakfast, so he dismissed them. Then attempted to make toasted bread himself. He burned the first piece, dropped the second, and somehow sent the third directly into a bowl of cream. Elena laughed. Adrian turned toward her with complete indignation. "What exactly is amusing?" "You. I am a duke. That does not improve the toast." Then a sound came from the far end of the table. Small, unexpected, beautiful. Cecily laughed. Both adults froze. The little girl covered her mouth as though frightened by the sound she had made. Adrian did not move. Elena's eyes filled. Neither of them said anything. They simply continued breakfast. That evening, Adrian entered his study alone. A calendar stood beside the desk. He crossed out another day. 87. He stared at the number beneath it. 86. For the first time since proposing the arrangement, the Duke of Ravenspire felt something he could not explain. The days were moving too quickly. Day 71. That night, Cecily woke screaming. Adrian reached the nursery after Elena. By the time he entered, the girl was clinging to Elena's nightdress, shaking violently. Adrian stopped in the doorway. Once, he would have summoned a physician. Now he knew better. He sat on the floor. He waited. Eventually Cecily reached toward him. Not with her hand. With a ribbon. Green. Stay. Adrian remained until she slept. It was nearly 2 in the morning when he and Elena finally left the nursery. Neither wanted to summon servants. They went downstairs to the kitchen. Elena cut bread. Adrian found cheese. They sat opposite each other beneath a single candle. No titles. No formal clothing. No child between them. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Elena said, "You are becoming very good with her. I misplaced the green ribbon twice this week. That is not what I meant." He looked down. "When Beatrice's husband died, I told myself my sister was capable. She always had been." Elena listened. "So I sent money." I arranged investments. I paid for tutors. I answered letters. But you didn't come. No. He looked toward the candle. I thought sending money counted as being present. Elena took a bite of bread. Many men do. His eyes lifted. Do you? She considered him for a moment. No. He almost looked offended. Then she continued. But I think you're beginning to know the difference. Something changed in his face. No smile. No clever answer. He simply watched her. And for the first time, Elena became aware that she was sitting alone in a kitchen after midnight with a man who was not merely Cecily's guardian. He was her husband. Adrian seemed to realize the same thing. His gaze dropped briefly to her loose hair, then to the wedding ring on her hand. Elena noticed. Neither mentioned it. Finally, Adrian stood. You should sleep. So should you. He carried the plates to the table by the sink. Elena smiled. You know servants will handle those in the morning. I am aware. Then why move them? He looked at the plates, then back at her. I don't know. She laughed softly, and Adrian found himself wanting to hear the sound again. A moment later, Elena left the kitchen. He remained behind. The room felt strangely empty after she was gone. Upstairs, in her own chamber, Elena removed her wedding ring and placed it beside the bed, as she did every night. But this time, she stared at it for several seconds. Then she remembered the agreement. 100 days. A temporary family. A temporary marriage. A temporary husband. She looked toward the small calendar on her desk. 29 days were already gone. 71 remained. And neither of them yet understood that the most dangerous part of the arrangement was no longer the guardianship hearing. It was how quickly Ravenspire Hall was beginning to feel like home. Day 63. Lord Edwin Mallory arrived without warning. He came at 11 in the morning with no solicitor, no carriage full of witnesses, and no dramatic declaration that he had come to inspect Adrian's household. That made Elena trust him even less. She found him in the morning room with Cecily. The old man was kneeling beside the child, attempting to repair one of her wooden horses. Cecily sat opposite him. A blue ribbon lay across her lap. Number Mallory noticed Elena looking at it. She has informed me that my repair is unacceptable. Elena almost smiled. That horse has had 3 legs since she was 5. So the missing leg is intentional? Apparently. Mallory handed it back. Cecily took it. Then, after a moment, placed a white ribbon beside his hand. Yes. The grandfather smiled. There was nothing false in it. That troubled Elena. She had expected him to be easier to dislike. Instead, Mallory was affectionate with Cecily, patient when she ignored him, and careful not to touch her without invitation. He genuinely loved the girl. That made the guardianship battle far more dangerous. Adrian entered shortly afterward. His face changed the moment he saw Mallory. You might have sent word. I might have. And yet you did not. Mallory stood. If I announced every visit, I would only ever see the version of this household prepared for visitors. Adrian's expression hardened. Elena interrupted before the 2 men could turn the morning room into a battlefield. Cecily has lessons in 10 minutes. Mallory nodded. Then I will not delay her. He bent slightly toward the girl. I shall come again. Cecily did not respond. He accepted that and turned toward the door. Then his gaze moved to Elena. Would you walk with me? Adrian answered before she could. No. Elena looked at him. Mallory did too. Then Elena said, yes. Adrian's jaw tightened. She followed Mallory into the garden. They walked beneath bare elm branches without speaking. Finally, the old man said, you intend to leave. Elena stopped. How do you know that? I made inquiries about your school. A cold feeling entered her stomach. You had no right. No, but rights have become an inconvenient subject in this family. He continued walking. Alderwich. 32 pupils expected by autumn. 2 teachers already contracted. Elena's voice sharpened. If you think exposing my plans will damage Adrian's case, I think your plans expose the truth. What truth? Mallory turned. That all three of you are pretending. Elena stared. The Duke wanted a stronger guardianship case. You wanted the child protected, so you married. Her silence answered him. Mallory lowered his voice. I do not blame you. That is generous. I am not trying to insult you. It is difficult to tell. I am asking whether you are building a home for Cecily, or performing one until the hearing. The words followed Elena long after Mallory left. That evening, she watched Adrian help Cecily with geography. He placed a map across the library floor. Cecily pointed toward Scotland. Adrian shook his head. No, that is Wales. She pushed a blue ribbon toward him. He stared at it. You cannot declare geography incorrect simply because you dislike my answer. Another blue ribbon. Elena laughed. Adrian looked up. You encourage rebellion. She is right. He frowned. Elena pointed. That is Scotland. Adrian looked at the map, then at Cecily. The child's eyes brightened. He quietly placed a white ribbon beside her hand. Yes, Cecily smiled, and Elena's heart hurt, because Mallory's question would not leave her. Was this a home or a performance? And if it had become real, what did that make her promise to leave? Day 53. The court representative arrived on the worst possible morning. Mr. Forsyth was a thin, quiet man who explained that his purpose was not to determine the guardianship himself, but to observe Cecily's living conditions and prepare a report. Adrian became formal immediately. Elena knew that voice. It meant he was frightened. Cecily knew it too. She refused breakfast, then refused her lessons. When Elena attempted to brush her hair, Cecily pushed the brush across the dressing table. It struck a porcelain figure. The figure shattered. Cecily froze, then ran. By the time Adrian reached the nursery corridor, she had locked herself inside. Mr. Forsyth stood several feet away, watching. This is unusual, Adrian said. Elena looked at him sharply. It was a lie. Not that Cecily often broke porcelain, but bad days were not unusual. Grief did not move in a straight line. Adrian stepped toward the nursery door. Cecily? Nothing. Open the door. Silence. He glanced toward Forsyth. Elena saw the old Adrian returning. The Duke. The man who solved discomfort by giving orders. His hand closed around the door handle. Cecily, I am telling you. Then he stopped. His shoulders lowered. He looked at Elena. She said nothing. Adrian released the handle. Then he sat down on the floor outside the nursery. Mr. Forsyth raised an eyebrow. Adrian leaned against the wall. You do not have to come out. No answer. We have a visitor. Still nothing. He came to decide whether I am doing this properly. Elena almost corrected him. Forsyth did not decide anything. But she remained silent. Adrian continued. I would very much like you to come downstairs and prove I know what I am doing. A pause. But I don't. Something shifted behind the door. Adrian looked at it. So you may stay in there. Another silence. The gentleman will simply have to discover that I am not very impressive. From somewhere behind the wood came a small sound. Not words. Movement. Adrian continued sitting. 10 minutes later, a green ribbon slid beneath the door. Stay. His face softened. He placed 2 fingers on the ribbon. I will. Forsyth wrote something in his notebook. Adrian did not ask what. Half an hour later, Cecily emerged. She ignored the visitor. She walked directly to Adrian and sat beside him. That afternoon, after Forsyth departed, Elena found Adrian standing beside a window. You did well. He laughed without humor. She hid from the man sent to inspect the household. You chose her over the inspection. I nearly did not, but you did. He looked at her. I wanted her to behave because I was afraid. That is normal. For you, perhaps, For everyone. Adrian studied her. Do you ever become afraid? Constantly. You never appear so. That is because I am excellent at deception. He smiled. Then his gaze remained on her for half a second too long. Neither moved. The silence between them had become different lately. Less comfortable. More dangerous. Elena turned first. Cecily needs her supper. Adrian nodded. But after she left, he continued staring at the doorway. Day 46. The first package arrived from Alderwich. Books. Elena was in the hall when a footman carried them inside. Adrian came down the staircase. What is that? My school books. He stopped. She had not expected that reaction. You ordered them already? I ordered them months ago. You never mentioned it. You knew about the school. Yes. Elena looked at him carefully. 46 days. The words changed his face. He looked toward the large clock in the hall, then back at her. Of course. Something tightened inside her. For weeks, he had behaved as though the deadline no longer existed. Apparently, she had imagined it. Adrian nodded toward the books. Where are they going? Alderwich. I'll arrange transport. You don't need to. I know. He walked away. Elena stared after him. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt strangely dismissed. That evening, Adrian entered his study. The calendar stood beside the desk. Day 46. He stared at the number, then removed the calendar entirely and placed it face down inside a drawer. He told himself it was childish to measure his life by crossed-out numbers. That was not the real reason. The real reason was that he no longer wanted to know how many remained. Day 38. Cecily slept through the night. The entire night, Elena woke at dawn and immediately went to check. The child lay beneath the blankets, one arm around her cloth rabbit, breathing peacefully. Adrian appeared in the doorway moments later. He looked exhausted. You checked too? Elena nodded. Neither entered. It felt as though moving too quickly might disturb the miracle. They stood in the corridor outside the nursery. Elena smiled. We did it. Adrian looked at Cecily. You did. Elena shook her head. We. His eyes moved to her face. Something passed between them that had been waiting for weeks. No argument. No crisis. No grand confession. Only two exhausted people standing outside a sleeping child's room. Adrian stepped closer. Elena should have moved. She did not. He lifted one hand as if he intended to touch her cheek, then hesitated. That hesitation made it worse, because it gave her time to stop him. She still did not. He kissed her, softly. Once. Nothing about it resembled duty. Elena felt the shock of that more deeply than she expected. Adrian pulled away first. His expression changed immediately. I apologize. Don't. He looked at her. She barely recognized her own voice. Don't apologize. The distance between them remained only inches. Adrian's gaze dropped to her mouth. Then the nursery door moved slightly. Both stepped apart. Cecily remained asleep. Elena released a breath. Adrian did not speak. Neither mentioned the kiss at breakfast, or luncheon, or dinner. For the next 3 days, they became painfully polite. It was almost unbearable. Day 34. Elena went to Alderwich to inspect the school. She expected cracked plaster. She expected the damaged chimney. She expected the muddy road. She did not expect any of them to have been repaired. She stood outside the small brick building in disbelief. The roof tiles had been replaced, the front steps reinforced. Several crates of books waited inside. A carpenter was repairing desks. Who arranged this? She asked. The carpenter looked surprised. His Grace. Elena went still. The Duke? Yes, ma'am. Sent men last week. Her chest tightened. For one foolish moment, happiness rushed through her. Then she understood. He was preparing her departure. Of course. Adrian believed in finishing obligations properly. She had given him a deadline. He was making certain there would be no complications when it arrived. When Elena returned to Ravenspire, she found him in the library. The school. Adrian looked up. You saw it? Yes. I hope the work was acceptable. It was generous. Something about her tone made him cautious. You wanted the school. I did. And the chimney was unsafe. Yes. So I had it repaired. Elena nodded. Thank you. Adrian frowned. There was too much distance in those two words. Elena, you have made everything much easier. His expression changed. That was not. She smiled formally. I mean it. I know you want this arrangement completed without unnecessary difficulty. Adrian stared at her. He understood suddenly. She thought he wanted her gone. His pride stopped him from correcting her quickly enough. By the time he found the words, she had already left the room. He stood alone beside the fire, then muttered, Idiot. He was unsure which of them he meant. Day 27. Lord Mallory visited again. This time Adrian did not challenge him. That surprised everyone. Cecily sat in the conservatory arranging colored ribbons into rows. Mallory watched her, then looked toward Adrian. You have changed. Adrian remained beside the window. That sounds dangerously like praise. It was not. Good. Mallory almost smiled. Then his face hardened. Your marriage began as an arrangement. Adrian said nothing. I know. How? Because people who marry in affection generally occupy adjoining chambers. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Mallory continued. Do not look offended. My solicitor discovered it, not I. Adrian felt cold. How much does he know? Enough to ask questions. Elena entered at that moment. Both men fell silent. She looked between them. What happened? Mallory answered. The hearing may not proceed as simply as you expect. Adrian's voice became dangerous. Leave. Mallory looked at Cecily, then back at him. I told you from the beginning. I would rather lose her honestly than win her through a performance. He left. Elena faced Adrian. What did he mean? Adrian did not lie. They know the marriage was arranged. Her face paled. How much? Not enough yet, but perhaps by the hearing. Yes. Cecily looked up at them. A red ribbon appeared in her hand. Leave me alone. Elena immediately stopped speaking. Adrian did too. The child had begun recognizing tension even when adults tried to hide it. That frightened Elena more than the court. Day 21. The first teacher arrived from Alderwich. Miss Harriet Sloane. She was 29, practical, energetic, and carried 3 notebooks beneath one arm. Elena greeted her warmly. Cecily watched from the staircase. What is she doing here? Adrian asked later. She will help prepare the school. You said the school did not open until autumn. It doesn't. Then why is she here now? Because I leave in 3 weeks. The words were quiet. Adrian stopped. From above them came a sound. A trunk lid closing. Both looked toward the stairs. Cecily stood there. Her face was white. Beside her sat one of Elena's traveling trunks. The child stared at it, then at Elena. Elena's heart dropped. Cecily. The girl backed away. Please. Cecily ran, not toward her nursery. Toward Adrian. She buried herself against his coat. For one terrible second, Adrian held her while staring at Elena. Elena expected anger. She almost wanted it. Instead, he looked devastated. She didn't know, he said. I thought she understood. She is 8. I know. No. Neither of us knew. Cecily clung harder. Elena approached slowly. Cecily. The child would not look at her. Elena knelt. I am not leaving today. Nothing. I will never disappear without telling you. Still nothing. Finally, Cecily pulled away from Adrian. She searched frantically through the pocket of her dress, then produced a green ribbon. She pushed it into Elena's hand. Stay. Elena's eyes filled. She could not answer. She could not promise something she did not know she could give. That silence hurt the child more than any explanation. Cecily ran upstairs. Elena remained kneeling. Adrian looked toward the staircase, then down at his wife. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Elena whispered, "Perhaps I should stay." Adrian's expression changed. For Cecily, he understood exactly what she meant. "You will still go." Elena looked up. "She needs me." "Yes." "Then how can I leave?" "Because we asked you to help save her. We did not purchase your life." Elena stared at him. Adrian crouched in front of her. His voice was quieter now. "I will not ask you to abandon your school because Cecily is afraid. What if leaving hurts her?" "It will." Elena flinched. He did not soften the truth. "She will cry. She will be angry. I will probably be angry." Her breath caught. "But she will learn that loving someone does not mean owning them." Elena's eyes searched his. Adrian continued, "You told me once that grief does not care about legal rights." A faint smile touched her mouth. "I remember. I have learned something since." "What?" He looked toward the stairs. "Love should care about freedom." The words entered her quietly, too quietly. Elena had spent nearly 80 days watching Adrian become a better guardian. Now, for the first time, she saw the man he might become as a husband. And that frightened her far more than the deadline, because she could leave a duty marriage. She had planned for that. What she had never planned for was wanting to remain. Upstairs, Cecily sat alone beside the window. Green ribbons covered her lap. Downstairs, Elena still held the one the child had pressed into her hand. 21 days remained. The hearing was approaching. The school was ready. The arrangement was ending. And for the first time since the wedding, both Adrian and Elena understood the same terrible truth. The 100th day was no longer threatening to separate three strangers. It was threatening to break a family. Cecily spoke because Adrian tied the wrong ribbon around a rabbit. It happened at breakfast. For 3 days, the child had barely acknowledged Elena. She still followed lessons, still ate when encouraged, still slept with her door open. But the easy warmth that had slowly returned to her had vanished the moment she discovered Elena was leaving. That morning, Cecily's cloth rabbit had somehow acquired a blue ribbon around its neck. Adrian looked at it. Blue means stay. Elena glanced up from her tea. "No." He frowned. "Of course it does. Green means stay. Blue means no." Adrian looked toward Cecily. The girl watched him. He held up the rabbit. "Blue means stay." Cecily's eyebrows drew together. Then Adrian reached into his pocket and produced a green ribbon. "This one means no." Elena realized what he was doing. He was deliberately getting them wrong. Cecily grabbed the edge of the table. Adrian continued, "And red means yes." Cecily shook her head violently. Adrian nodded solemnly. "I am certain." The child opened her mouth. Nothing came. Adrian placed the green ribbon around the rabbit. "So this means no. Green means stay." The words were small. So small Adrian almost failed to understand them. Then every person in the room froze. Elena's teacup stopped halfway to the saucer. Adrian did not move. Cecily seemed equally startled by the sound of her own voice. Her fingers tightened around the tablecloth. Adrian slowly removed the ribbon. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Green means stay?" Cecily nodded, then said it again. "Stay." Elena covered her mouth. Adrian's eyes filled instantly. He turned away, pretending to examine the rabbit. No one embarrassed him by mentioning it. Cecily looked toward Elena. The child's lips trembled. "Green means stay." This time it was not a correction. It was a plea. Elena's restraint broke. She stood so quickly that her chair scraped across the floor. Then she left the breakfast room. She made it as far as the small passage beside the conservatory before the tears came. Cecily had spoken. After months of silence, She had spoken, and her first words had asked Elena not to go. Elena pressed one hand against the wall. Footsteps approached. Adrian. He found her crying beside the window. For once, he offered no solution, no instruction, no argument. He simply sat on the bench beneath the window. Elena sank beside him. She spoke. I know. Because she wants me to stay. I know. Elena wiped her face. What am I supposed to do with that? Adrian looked straight ahead. I don't know. She turned toward him. He could have used the moment. One sentence would have been enough. Stay for Cecily. He did not say it. Instead, he remained beside her until the tears stopped. That silence told Elena more about him than any declaration could have. Day 9. Elena spent the night in Alderwich. She needed to meet the final carpenter, approve the school accounts, and arrange accommodation for Miss Sloane. She would return the following afternoon. Adrian told himself the absence meant nothing. One night, that was all. Cecily ate supper with him. They played cards. He read 2 chapters from a book. He braided one of her ribbons so badly that she finally spoke again. You're terrible. Adrian stared. Cecily looked alarmed. Then he smiled. I have been called worse. That earned him a tiny laugh. Everything was fine. The servants moved efficiently through Ravenspire Hall. Cecily slept peacefully. The fires burned. His correspondence was waiting. Nothing was missing. And yet when Adrian entered the kitchen after midnight, the room felt wrong. Elena's chair was empty. Her cup was absent from the shelf. No book lay open beside the lamp. The small shawl she often forgot over the back of the chair was gone. Adrian stood there for a long time. He had believed he feared day 100 because Cecily would lose Elena. That was part of it. He had believed the household depended on her. That was also true. He had thought perhaps he had grown comfortable, accustomed, dependent. But the house was functioning perfectly. Cecily was safe. Nothing had collapsed. And Adrian was miserable. He walked to the chair Elena normally used and touched the wooden back. He did not miss what she did. He missed the way she looked at him when he said something foolish. He missed the slight crease between her brows when she read. He missed hearing her footsteps in the corridor. He missed arguing with her. He missed knowing she was somewhere in the house even when they were not together. He missed Elena, not governess, not guardian, not temporary duchess. Elena. The realization came without thunder. That made it worse. Adrian sat down. 9 days. He had married her for duty. It had taken him 91 days to understand that somewhere between ribbons, burnt toast, midnight bread, arguments, fear, and one quiet kiss outside a nursery, duty had disappeared, and love had taken its place. He had noticed too late. Day 6. Elena returned to Ravenspire to find Adrian waiting in the library. She knew immediately something was wrong. He stood beside the fireplace but had not lit it. Has something happened? No. Cecily? She is with Miss Sloane. Elena placed her gloves on the table. Then what is it? Adrian looked at her. For once, he had no carefully prepared speech. I don't want the 100 days to end. Elena went still. He continued before courage deserted him. I thought I married you because Cecily needed you. Her heart began beating harder. And now, I love you. There it was. The sentence she had imagined against her will. The sentence she had wanted. And yet, when it finally arrived, fear reached her before happiness. Adrian stepped closer. I love you. Elena shook her head. Don't. His expression fell. Don't say it because the trunks are packed. That has nothing to do with it, doesn't it? No. You are about to lose the woman who manages Cecily's days. Your household is changing. The arrangement that made this house comfortable is ending. You think that is what this is? I don't know what this is. I do. Do you? That stopped him. Elena's voice trembled now. If the hearing had happened 60 days ago, would you have loved me? He said nothing. 40? Elena, would you? I don't know. She swallowed. Then perhaps you do not love me. Perhaps you are afraid of what this house becomes when I leave. I was afraid of that. She waited. Adrian struggled for the right words, but love discovered at the edge of loss sounded suspiciously like fear, even to him. His delay answered badly. Elena's face closed. I thought so. No, you cannot prove the difference. I don't know how. The honesty surprised her. She looked away, then whispered, then don't. Adrian's first instinct was to fight, to persuade, to tell her she was wrong. Instead, he remembered what he had told her. Love should care about freedom. So he stepped back. All right? Elena looked at him. He forced himself to continue. I meant what I said, but I will not turn it into another reason you owe me something. Her eyes filled. Neither touched the other. The hearing was 3 days away. They spent those 3 days behaving with unbearable kindness. Day 1. The guardianship hearing took place in a private chancery chamber in London. Lord Mallory sat on one side. Adrian and Elena sat opposite. Cecily waited in another room with Miss Sloane. Mr. Forsyth's report rested before the court representative. For the first hour, matters went better than Adrian expected. The report described Cecily's improving routine, her renewed speech, Adrian's increased presence, the emotional stability of Ravenspire Hall. Then Mallory's solicitor stood. I have one matter regarding the marriage itself. Elena's stomach tightened. A document was placed on the table. Their original agreement. 100 days. Separate chambers. Financial independence. Departure after the hearing. Adrian stared at it. How did you obtain that? The solicitor did not answer. He did not need to. The room changed immediately. Questions followed. Had the marriage been contracted specifically to strengthen Adrian's guardianship claim? Yes. Had Elena intended to leave? Yes. Had they initially occupied separate rooms? Yes. Mallory did not look pleased. He looked tired. That was somehow worse. The court representative turned toward Adrian. Your Grace, are you asking this court to believe your marriage was founded upon affection? Adrian knew what answer could save him. Yes. One lie. Elena looked at him. He could say they had been secretly attached. He could turn the last months into evidence. He could use her love, if she loved him, the way he had once used her presence. Adrian stood. No. Elena's eyes lifted. I married her because I was afraid I would lose my niece. The solicitor sat back. Adrian continued. I asked a woman to rearrange her life because I did not know how to rearrange mine. No one interrupted. Our marriage began as duty. His gaze moved to Elena. What it became is not evidence I am entitled to use against her. Elena stopped breathing. She leaves tomorrow. Mallory's solicitor looked almost triumphant. Adrian did not care. She has a school, a profession, plans that existed before I asked her to help me. The court representative studied him. And you are content with that? No. The answer was immediate. Elena looked down. I am not content at all. A faint stir moved through the room. But my unhappiness does not create an obligation for her. Silence. That was when Mr. Forsyth asked for Cecily. The child entered holding Miss Sloane's hand. No one asked her to deliver a grand speech. No one placed the weight of an adult conflict upon her shoulders. Forsyth crouched. Cecily, do you understand why we are here? Yes. Do you feel safe with your uncle? She nodded. And with Lord Mallory? Another nod. Where would you like to live? Cecily looked at her grandfather, then at Adrian, then Elena. Her small face tightened. She reached into her pocket. 2 ribbons. Green. She crossed the room. One went into Adrian's hand, the other into Elena's. Both. Nothing more. It was enough. The final decision came before evening. Adrian retained guardianship. Mallory received generous visitation. And because Elena had become central to Cecily's emotional recovery, the court formally recognized that Cecily should retain contact with her regardless of where Elena lived or what became of the marriage. The obligation was finished. They had won. Elena was free. A day zero. She left. Adrian did not stop the carriage. That surprised everyone except Elena. He helped carry her final trunk down the steps himself. Cecily cried openly. Elena knelt and held her. "You may visit." "When?" "Soon." "Promise?" "I promise. I promise." Cecily slipped a green ribbon around Elena's wrist, then stepped back. At the carriage, Adrian and Elena faced each other. No audience mattered. No court. No grandfather. No deadline remained. "I meant what I said," Adrian told her. She knew which words. "I love you." Elena nodded. "I know." Then she entered the carriage. Adrian closed the door. He did not ask her to remain. He did not follow on horseback. He stood beside Cecily, while the carriage disappeared beyond the gates. For the first time in 100 days, there was no number waiting for him tomorrow. That should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like loss. 6 weeks later, the school opened on a Monday. 34 girls arrived. By Wednesday, one window was broken. By Friday, 3 ink bottles had been spilled, and someone had hidden a frog in Miss Sloane's desk. Elena had never been happier. She missed Ravenspire terribly. Both things were true. That mattered. She had feared that leaving would prove she did not love them. Instead, leaving taught her that love did not require the destruction of the life she had wanted. Cecily visited twice. Adrian never accompanied her. He sent no flowers, no pleading letters, no expensive gifts. He gave Elena exactly what she had asked for: space. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, a carriage stopped outside the school. Elena looked through the window. Adrian stepped out. Alone. Her heart betrayed her immediately. She met him outside. "Where is Cecily?" "At Ravenspire." "Is she ill?" "No." "Has something happened?" "No." Elena frowned. "Then why are you here?" Adrian looked almost nervous. That alone was worth seeing. "That's why I'm here." She waited. He removed his hat. "The first time I asked you to marry me, I needed something." Elena said nothing. "I needed you to save my guardianship case. I needed you to help Cecily. I needed you to make me appear capable of building a home." His mouth tightened. "I asked for nearly everything you had and called it duty." Elena's eyes softened. "This time I am asking for nothing." Adrian took a breath. "Accept permission to return next Thursday." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because I would like to court you." A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. "We are already married." "I am aware. That seems slightly out of order." "I have done nearly everything with you in the wrong order." She smiled. Adrian's voice became quieter. "May I?" Elena considered making him wait. She considered pretending she needed time. But freedom meant she did not have to manufacture reluctance either. Next Thursday, his smile changed his entire face. He came back, then again, and again. Adrian did not ask Elena to return to his world. He entered hers. He ate supper with teachers. He listened while Elena explained why arithmetic mattered for girls who might one day manage businesses. He allowed 12 pupils to destroy his dignity during a spelling game. He learned which books Elena loved. She learned he hated opera, loved astronomy, and had once wanted to travel through Italy before inheriting the dukedom. They took walks without discussing Cecily. They argued about politics. They laughed. They kissed again. This time, no one apologized. Months later, they stood beneath an old chestnut tree behind the school. Adrian had stopped asking when she intended to return to Ravenspire. So Elena finally asked him, "Do you want me to come home?" "Yes." He paused. "But that is the wrong question. What is the right one?" Adrian took her hand. What would a life that belongs to both of us look like? Elena looked toward the school, then toward him, and for the first time, the future did not appear to require one of them to surrender. They found their answer slowly. Part of the year at Ravenspire, part near Alderwich. Elena kept the school. Cecily gained 2 homes rather than losing one. Adrian learned to conduct estate business without disappearing from the people he loved. Their marriage remained legally the same. Everything else was rebuilt. One evening, nearly a year after their first wedding, Elena found the old green ribbon in Adrian's desk. Beside it lay the calendar he had hidden on day 46. She held it up. "You kept this?" "I forgot to destroy the evidence." She smiled. 100 days. Adrian groaned. Never again. Elena moved closer. "How many days this time?" He looked at her. "None." She frowned playfully. "None." Adrian took the calendar from her hand and closed it. "I am finished counting toward endings." Elena's smile faded into something softer. The first time she had chosen him, it had been for Cecily. The second time, there was no court, no contract, no deadline, no duty. Only a man who had finally learned that loving someone did not mean finding a reason they could not leave. And a woman who could leave, but chose him anyway.